holding on to the chance for those moderate to even upwards of heavy pockets of rain. Anywhere you see those yellows, oranges, even reds.
Lakeshore flood advisories remain in place, so continued problems with inland flooding, erosion, and things like that.
Sanford and Edenville residents, you are urged to evacuate immediately.
Midland, Edenville, Sanford, and other communities after the Edenville and Sanford dams failed.
Leave now, water's coming.
It's scary.
This is pretty unreal.
Experts are describing this as a 500-year event.
We have never been through an event such as we're experiencing today.
Flooding that I have never seen before.
We've had multiple calls. We've had 3 evacuations, down lines.
This is the whopper of all whoppers.
It was unbelievable.
I honestly think it would happen to us here.
Because it's devastating. Whatever we can do to help is what it's all about.
Seeing neighbor helping neighbor. That we're going to come back from this, but we can't do it alone.
We'll rebuild.
So many different emotions, I can't even explain it. I'm sad, I'm mad, I'm lost, I feel lost.
Those images still fresh on the minds of so many 2 years later. The catastrophic dam failures led to flooding, destroyed homes and businesses, left lakes and canals dry, and now the final report reveals it all could have been prevented. Thank you for joining us for this special program, Rising from the Floods. I'm David Custer.
And I'm Meg McLeod. We are coming to you tonight from the Sanford Dam. May 19th, 2020 resulted in one of the worst man-made disasters this state has ever seen. And now a 500-page report details the decades of failures that led to the demise of the Edenville and Sanford dams. A team of forensic engineers reports both human and physical factors are to blame. But the team didn't single out one individual or organization. The report says the overall system for financing, designing, building, operating, and upgrading the dams fell short.
So I think it's difficult to comprehend how something as important as a safe dam might slip through the cracks.
The report calls the Edenville Dam problematic from the get-go. It cites inconsistent design plans and specifications when it was built. The team concluded a series of errors and miscalculations over the course of nearly 100 years, all contributed to the end result.
When you see what happened here, it seemed like a switch just turned on.
A switch that turned flooded streets into a flood of momentum across the greater Sanford area. While the dam failures unleashed devastation, business owners are working to rebuild and restore a sense of community.
All right, let's see where you're at.
Not long ago, Devin Stark opened the door to her own salon just around the corner from downtown Sanford.
February 23rd was our first day.
Since then, she's been concocting just the right recipe for success.
I actually worked in the same building 5 years ago. It's probably doubled in business.
It's hard to believe for the Sanford native, just 2 years after the devastating dam failures.
I didn't even think there would be a Sanford after that. With how bad it looked down here, it was bad. And seeing how it is now, it's an amazing comeback.
The community rallied together and made this all happen.
Village Councilman Carl Hammond says the infectious spirit of neighbors helping neighbors is what dug Sanford out of its darkest day.
If you look around through the village, everything that you see was about 7 foot underwater.
May 19th, 2020 may have washed away what Sanford once was, but residents could never have imagined the flood of new business that would follow. Plans are rolling in for a Big B coffee at Sanford Food Center, a cannabis dispensary, an ice cream parlor, a bicycle repair shop, a shoe repair shop, and more. And that's not to mention all those that have already rebuilt, like the place for people to rebuild themselves.
Bend your knees.
In downtown,
Come up halfway.
the studio is reaching residents
Left hand up to the heavens.
in a new way.
I had my doubts in the beginning that a yoga studio would have any interest. I was totally wrong there. Lots of interest. I mean, we have people that have said they think God brought them here. When you get that kind of feedback, it's very humbling.
Owners Lon and Debbie say the studio has become a place for people to come together while giving yoga and dance a spin. And they know they're looking out at only the beginning of Sanford's extraordinary rebirth.
It's the phoenix rising. It's really come into its own.
For Devin, she's now seeing her hometown's future in full color.
I honestly thought it was going to be the end of Sanford. And I mean, in a way it was, because it didn't go back to how it was before. It's so much better.
That's the positive. Everybody has just changed.
And it's that reinvigorated community spirit that's made Sanford strong.
It's so terrible to say that you got to have a catastrophe to rebuild. You know, it's kind of like you got to have winter before the spring. And that's where we're at now. The spring's coming.
Sanford isn't the only place where the community has rallied around its small businesses. Right before the flood, David Kreiderman had just started working on upgrades at the Hook Party Store and Bait Shop in Hope near Wixom Lake.
I just put a new seawall in, all new docks, got that all reworked and everything, and then we lost the water.
And that meant he also lost a crucial piece of his customer base, boaters. But Kreiderman says as he waits for the water to come back, his community has kept him going.
Thanks to the locals, they've been very supportive. It's slow, but a lot of people are standing behind me. You know, they appreciate me being open, and we'll do the best we can, keeping the lights on.
Kreiderman says the support has been humbling.
That sense of community is changing people's lives along the banks of Wixom Lake. The flooding of their neighborhoods, followed by the draining of the lake, forced neighbors to not only meet for the first time, but they're forming lifelong friendships as they navigate the disaster together.
A red-winged blackbird seeks out a swampy area in late spring to nest. 2 years ago, this wetland wouldn't have been an ideal spot.
Our home was on a beautiful canal. Today, it is not so beautiful.
Weeds, mud, small puddles of water, the landscape of the Venice Subdivision Canal in Gladwin County. Once a picture-perfect snapshot of a Michigan summer, a pathway to Wixom Lake.
We'd love to have it back.
Tammy and Bob O'Donnell will never forget May 19th, 2020. Water began surrounding their vacation home. They made it out before the M30 bridge disappeared beneath the surface. But just as fast as the water came in, it quickly flowed out when the Edenville Dam failed, as if someone pulled the plug.
We came back up by 11 the next morning, and the devastation was, it gives me goosebumps to this day.
But every bit of this was basically on our deck.
But something more noticeable than the logs washed up that day. And unlike the debris, it's not being tossed out.
People just came out of their homes, open-armed, and say, what can I do? What can I help with? It was amazing.
Neighbors who once only waved to each other in passing, now sharing a common bond birthed out of disaster.
At the time, it seemed like COVID went away for like a quick second. It's like neighbors were hugging.
We were making trips back and forth all morning. The neighbors were helping us.
We know our immediate neighbors, but that night, neighbors up the road had a nice dinner for us, and we had a nice shower to relax to.
It's just little efforts. It's all it takes, and to help a neighbor that's, lost things and clean up their property.
Purpose flowed right into the hearts of this newly discovered community, a community built by fellow comrades rising from the flood, choosing to make a permanent nest.
We had great fishing, swimming, boating. We had everything.
As they wait for the season that'll bring the water back home.
Basically, since the flood, we have been here full-time. In July, we made the move to make this our full-time residence, and we've never looked back.
And eventually, I want to move up here permanently. We live in Midland right now, but I want to move up here with my wife and enjoy whenever it comes back.
We're very thankful for what we have. We don't want anyone to feel sorry for us in any way, because we feel truly blessed.
Many of the neighbors we talked with are members of the Wixom Lake Association, a nonprofit organization helping residents around the lake rebuild. Its president, Doug Hill, says it started as a social community, but has blossomed into so much more in the last 2 years.
So we've been spending a lot of our funds and our efforts into trying to make sure that we become a resource for them. And then the visionary part of this is, what do we want to look like after all of this comes unfold? How do we want to keep the community spirit that we've built here?
Hill describes the group as a grassroots effort and a rock for people to cling to as they tackle the recent challenges.
I feel a personal desire to keep capturing these moments, documenting this for history.
And that inspired Jordan Mowbray to grab a drone and start documenting the destruction. Over the last 2 years, he's posted regular reports from the dams. He's even set up 24/7 live cams, causing him to build quite the following online.
When the dams failed, I think it was at about 5,000 subscribers. Now it's up to about 33,000 subscribers. But I was really surprised at how much national and world audience there is too. We have people from Sweden, Norway.
If you'd like to check out Jordan's latest updates, we have a link in the hot links section on WNEM.com.
Well, it'll cost millions to rebuild the dams and restore the lakes, but where will the money come from?
We'll tell you how much of that money could be coming from property owners living on and close to the lakes coming up.
And the floods left many people searching for answers and wondering what to do next. We'll talk to people looking at the positives as the area bands together to bring back lake life. That's next. Plus,
singing her heart out for her hometown. We'll sit down with the lead singer of a popular 80s cover band using her voice to raise money for Wixom Lake.
there were so many emotions on that day 2 years ago: shock, fear, anger, and sadness. But now people are trying to count their blessings and stay strong as things slowly get back to normal.
We spoke with one couple living on the lake as they look forward to brighter days.
The water was this high, but it's the blessings that we got. The hot tub still worked. Anybody can take away, it's the little things you remember now. At the beginning, it was total devastation, it was total heartbreak.
Could have been so much worse.
Mike and Karen Logsden are moving forward, looking on the bright side after their lifelong dream was drained.
30 fish that we rescued and put back in the river.
We had a day bed over here.
Floated on top and didn't get wet. We had so many little blessings along the way.
But it wasn't until the last few months that Mike had a more optimistic view about what happened to their dream view.
It was tough. There was times I was very depressed. I wouldn't even look out the window.
But now, after so much rebuilding,
just finished this fire pit. I just put it back together.
The Logsdens and other Sanford Lake residents are looking out at the light at the end of the tunnel.
It's been 2 years of a lot of emotions, but a lot of recovery efforts.
For Sanford Lake Association's president, he's discovered a lot of good amid this disaster.
People stepping up big time. The whole sense of community being huge kind of makes you proud being from this town.
As downtown continues its reconstruction, Tim Holsworth says the next step for the lake bed is cutting it down.
Something like 800 acres of trees that are 15 feet tall now.
Holsworth says as long as things go to plan, the lakes will be restored in just about 3 years.
There's a lot of great people that are working for the recovery. We'll get there.
And getting there has gotten easier as time has drifted on.
I feel so much happiness about what we've accomplished here, and we have so much more to do out by the water.
When those lakes do roar back, he hopes people don't forget the silver linings amid Sanford's most devastating days.
Those little blessings that people overlooked for a year, now I understand them. So, and I'll be back.
Many are still waiting for answers on the lawsuits filed after the floods.
What's taking so long, and will the state government be granted immunity from them? Those questions are answered next.
But first, how much of the repair bill will be paid by property owners living in these lakeside communities? We'll crunch the numbers and break down the proposed plan.
Phases of recovery. That's how the Four Lakes Task Force is organizing its efforts to repair the dams and restore the lakes.
The first phase was stabilizing the dams and figuring out the cost of damage. The second phase is figuring out how to pay for those repairs.
Property owners in the lakeside communities will foot a chunk of the bill. TV5's Blake Keller breaks down how much each one will be required to pay.
The property tax assessments is a way to fund the rebuilding of the dams.
Determining a property's assessed value, something Midland realtor Teresa Quintana says is going to have a major impact on the region's recovery.
And there's two different types of tax assessments that are going to be placed on lakefront and backlot properties.
The Four Lakes Task Force split the assessments in two, an operations assessment and a capital improvements assessment.
Operations assessment, and that's going to be a continuous assessment. That's forever, and that's to pay for maintenance and operations, and that makes sure that this never happens again. The second assessment is capital improvements, and this is going to supplement the cost of the rebuilding of the four dams. The methodology is complicated.
Citizens who are 100% in support, they understand the methodology. We've got another group of citizens who feel that it's unfair for any taxation to come to them.
Gladwin County Administrator Mark Justin says there's mixed reaction. The methodology considers a range of factors like if it's a front or back lot, the length of land facing water, the water depth, the benefits of the land, and much more.
Secured a lot of funding for us that's really eased the burden on the taxpayers in the county.
The concern is dwindling because there's been a significant decrease in what the estimates have been.
And the reality is none of us want to pay more money.
Tim Holsworth, the Sanford Lake Association president, says the assessments are an investment into lake life.
But I think that the majority of us feel like it's a necessary evil.
The association has given $45,000 in order to help offset some assessment costs. Along with state funding and grants, the assessments were much higher before.
Originally, just Sanford Lake as an example, was originally the highest one. 2 years ago, it was estimated to be around $3,000 a year.
And it's a bargain of the century. The assessment is a really good deal when you consider increase in property values, right?
We reached out to the Four Lakes Task Force regarding the Special Assessment District. President Dave Kepler says, with the grant from the state, the restoration of the lakes and dams is now affordable for the majority of property owners. In the meantime, we will continue to pursue other grants and funding. All right, here's a top to bottom look at that district. And with additional grants, the task force anticipates a tentative 3% at-large assessment for the counties and townships in this region. But any and all assessments would need approval first. I'm Blake Keller. Back to you.
If you'd like to take a look at the interactive Special Assessment District map, go to the hot link section on WNEM.com.
And there's a mapped out timeline by the Four Lakes Task Force for the dam repairs. It reports 4 dams are on track and on schedule. So when will they be operational again? Well, work at the Seacourt and Smallwood Dam should wrap up in 2024. The Sanford Dam should be back in operation by 2025, and the Edenville Dam will take the longest, scheduled to be completed by 2026.
Hundreds of people sued the state and federal government in the wake of the floods, but they're still waiting for a resolution. The state has attempted to have those lawsuits thrown out, arguing it has governmental immunity. Attorney Ben Johnson says the state is making the process longer than it needs to be.
2 years of litigation later, we haven't taken a single deposition. We haven't done much of anything in terms of a real trial. Why? Because the state of Michigan is engaging in that same delay, deny, defend behavior. They're just kicking the can down the road.
Johnson says the Michigan Supreme Court rejected the state's latest appeal last month to dismiss the lawsuits.
Being prepared for the next emergency, should there be one, is top of mind for many of those responsible for keeping people in these communities safe. Gladwin County's Emergency Management Director Robert North says another flood is inevitable, so he's tasked with being proactive and consistently updating and improving lines of communication to make sure everyone in harm's way makes it to safety.
We want people to get ready for the next one. The topography dictates that we will flood. We've had a major flooding event almost every decade or so, going back into the 20s.
North urges property owners to get flood insurance, even if they're not in a floodplain, because help from FEMA and the state aren't always guaranteed. He also encourages everyone to sign up for the Nixle program. It gives you real-time emergency alerts straight to your phone. Gladwin and Midland County residents can text their zip code to 888-777.
The flood left the Midland Center for the Arts and the Midland County Historical Society scrambling to protect artifacts spanning 200 years. Most of them were saved and are now undergoing the long process of restoration. Once they come back, they'll be housed somewhere high and dry.
Those collections will have a home here at the center, safe and far from the floodplain, and will be stored in an environmentally controlled space.
The center has also launched a campaign to raise $47 million for post-flood renovations. It's already raised $34 million.
Still to come, raising money by raising the roof.
Up next, meeting the little lady using her big voice at an 80s benefit concert for the Wixom Lake Association.
Very post-apocalyptic, especially when you have all these memories of water flowing and economy thriving and people meeting.
This young woman says those memories are destined to make a comeback, just like many of the 80s songs she sings with her band, Miranda and the M80s.
She grew up on Wixom Lake, and now she's using her stage to give her hometown a voice.
A big voice, a small-town girl, and a persona larger than life.
I love performing. It's what I was really born to do.
Beaverton High School grad Miranda Amy was born to perform, singing every weekend in the band Miranda and the M80s, a role that happened by chance for a waitress asked by a customer to audition for the lead in his band.
I thought, man, this will never work. You know, how will I gel after growing up singing like dinner music and yodeling and training classically?
She hit them with her best shot, nailed the audition, and hit the road with her new bandmates in 2013. But the devastation to her hometown in May of 2020 sang a lyric to her heart, pulling her back to her roots.
In all reality, I'd hoped that it had come in the form of, upon getting a record deal, I would purchase an activity center for the youth in Beaverton, or, you know, something to a much grander scale. But starting here feels like a better place than any.
Miranda and the M80s performed to a packed house at the Northern Lanes in Sanford in late April, benefiting the Wixom Lake Association, a nonprofit with a goal of improving and maintaining the waterways of the Tittabawassee and Tobacco River systems known as Wixom Lake.
They're trying to gather funds in larger amounts so that they can do the work to repair the seawalls to greater degree and get everything else in order so that when the water comes back, we can accept it and we don't have any repeats.
But Miranda hopes to be on repeat, coming back to help as often as she can to the familiar stage that birthed her incredible gift.
I think it's super important that all of our sister cities and people who weren't directly impacted by those dams breaking and all those floods and all the home damage that insurance couldn't cover for people, I think it's very important that we remember that that's still going on and that they still need help.
And Miranda put on quite a show in Sanford. The benefit concert raised $3,800 for the Wixom Lake Association.
Thank you so much for tuning in to our special tonight.
We leave you now with an aerial view of the recovery as Mid-Michigan continues rising from the floods.